Hello from cyberspace. This is Tamara Stafford, and my whole feeling for life is now all on the internet. I've given up on ground, uh, person by person, because we've become impersonalized, meaning not that we don't have feelings. We have a lot of feelings. Look at Hollywood. We want to know when Paris Hilton goes in and out of jail, and et cetera, et cetera. But I'm personalizing the focus of life and focus. My focus being horses, other people's focuses being science, religion, theoretical literature or literature, going to work from 9 to 5 and getting off Saturday and Sunday and having a wonderful life after 65. All those people. I'm really involved with just the climate of individuality. In the 70s, I watched Mexicans from Mexico, in California, dive into the manure piles. Uh, the they do their little show up at whatever point in time to say illegal aliens. And of course, they knew when the guys were coming, and they literally did dive into huge straw manure piles. And that was my first uh, claim to seeing reality. The internet gives us so much reality, all sorts of reality, pseudo reality by governments and politicians, and reality of real people. And the real people I knew were hardworking Mexicans. They weren't drug lords, they weren't people running away from anything but poverty. And Mexico had a lot of poverty in those days. And all their nickels and dimes went down to Mexico. And the big lords of racing soon put a stop to those uh, agents from the government because their $1 million horses at Santa Anita were running around the track with nobody at the end of the shank. Nothing like getting to the heart of the people that own our nation at this point. You might think me cynical or whatever, but I'm just reporting the news. I'm not making the news. Now we're 2000, what, 10, going on 11. And all we have to say for it is we have a new president, and he presides, to me, just like President Bush did, that everybody hated because he was Republican. Well, now we have a Democrat that's so far left, it makes the Russians look Republican. And since 9/11, as a horseman, I can say they blew up. They didn't just blow up the Twin Towers, folks. And I'm not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about the integrity or the last little shred of integrity that the United States had in our insurance companies that pretty much tell us to go right, left, or halt or go forward. Because basically, in my lifetime as a young adult till now, insurance companies have dictated what you can and cannot do. And I remember when I was a millionaire or married to a Portland Cement Trust Fund baby, uh, I had to have a $2 million umbrella. And a very good lawyer in Manhattan, Park Avenue lawyer, told me, he says it doesn't matter how much insurance you have, you still can be sued. So much for your insurance. and I hope you hear me, middle class, because it does not safeguard you against anything, and certainly now the government. But anyway, why is small business failing? Well, it's not Bubba Obama and his regime. It's the whole climate of where we've been going for many decades now. And pretty much since 9/11, which really gave an earthquake of an 8.0 on the Richter scale to the small horsemen. And you can see it mirror itself with the states: California, Florida. Kentucky has always been a independent state, and that's where a lot of, if our children and you are educated, have never been really bought off state. It's never been a bought off state. It's always been an individual state. And they don't even let Bank of America into Lexington. I think that's so cool. Um, this is before the bailouts, folks. I was up in Lexington, and I had I can't stand Bank of America, and I had it only because my owners could talk to me in Canada and Miami and California all at the same time with their stupid credit cards, and I really, really am hurt because of it. And did you by the way, know that Bank of America can electronically bounce your checks within a 24-hour period? And I happen to have this wonderful knowledge. I had a $30 checkout, and I was actually going from California to Lexington at the time. And they in that 24-hour period, my $30 check went into $325 of bounce fees. And by the time I got to Lexington, and then I didn't find out, thank you, Lexington, for not having Bank of America, I had to make a lot of zigzags. I'm coming down to the principles of personal, individual identity as far as being a small business entrepreneur and a self-governed person. And our nation was built on farmers and self-entrepreneurs. You didn't have to be a Rockefeller. You didn't have to be a Paul Millen. You could be just a farmer with 20 acres. And I remember many years ago, it was my daughter was 2 weeks old, and this is 1983. And bang, 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 bang goes my door in New York on my wonderful farm in Chatham, New York. And the FBI there are knocking on my door, and at the time I had a nanny to help me, and which wasn't much help, by the way. Anyway, she was from Wales, and she thought somebody had died in Wales, and they were trying to come and tell her. And it was about approximately 7 in the morning, and I was so lucky. My aunt from England, who was a dean at Darwin College, Cambridge, her name was Dr. Sylvia Fitton Jackson, hyphenated. You can look it up for you guys that are cynical. And I ran down to the east wing of my beautiful castle that I had in Chatham, New York. And I said, my God, there's these guys in suits with a police car behind them. They have the whole carriage house and driveway blocked, and da 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 da. And I ran down, and I grabbed my infant, Sherston Carey Sr., 2 weeks old. And I figured, well, this will give me strength, because my husband wouldn't get up. He was a Lord Fauntleroy, Portland Cement. Trust fund babies usually never get up, by the way, because they've never had to get up early in the morning. And very few of them are solvent. And that's what's wonderful also in our nation of the United States. At the third generation, which is my daughter, by the way, you don't have to be subservient to trusts and wills and stuff. We did that purposely in the United States so people wouldn't become kings and lords over the serfs. That's you and me, people. Anyway, I went downstairs. They put me through over 2 hours of interrogation in my beautiful, at the time, dining room. And I was holding my baby in my arms. But I really did get steadfast at the end. And especially since my aunt came into the room. Juju is a wonderful person, and she stood in the doorway and said, "What the bloody hell is going on here?" And I was so glad she walked in. Suits, FBI suits, are very intimidating, and that's what I go back to, folks. The intimidation that the government is doing to the small business entrepreneur is exactly that. They're all in suits. There's nothing behind them. There are no real constitutional laws behind them. And what we have now are politicians that are subservient to the status quo of the good old boys club. If you want to meet the good old boys club as a horseman, go to Louisiana Downs and stay there for 2.5 years. You'll find out what the good old boys club is. But I give kudos to them compared to what I'm seeing now. At least in Louisiana, they give you the opportunity to have a $50 start. In Florida, they're putting so many good, soluble trainers and integrity trainers. They might not be the luck of Nick Zito or Todd Pletcher or Michael Matz, who had his gold medal and had a red carpet into the racing world. These are really solid, old, really lovers of horse racing. And they did it the old-fashioned way. They worked for it. They didn't have the contacts and the networking. And now, what is Florida doing? It's minimum. Even, and like myself, I've never had a workman's comp complaint. It went previous to 9/11. I was grandfathered into Stafford Farms at $300 a year, any state in the world or on this continent. Now it's up to $2,800 and $5,000 a year, and you can have one horse, 2 horses. It doesn't matter in Florida. In California, it's even worse. The last I heard, it was $25,000, and there was only one insurance carrier. Boy, if that's not fascism, tell me what is. Anyway, now we have the H-2B visa thing, which is an old saga of Ocala. They put out in print on the newspaper a little thing, and the big farms do it around here for years. And so they can go through the litigation of the politics and laws, that Florida puts out, so they can hire illegal aliens instead of local Americans that don't want to work. And again, this week, a friend of mine came for me. She worked for 10 years, huge stable. And guess what? They had her hanging up for 4 weeks. H-2B visa.